All right. It did not give us a countdown. It was just spinning, but we are now officially live. So, hello, Balance Bosses. I'm super excited today to bring you one of my dear friends and just an incredible resource and light in our industry, Robyn Ramirez. Robyn, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about talking.
It is my pleasure. I like talking and talking about talking. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to give just a little bit of a bio, but then I'm going to let you kind of expand on it. So, you are known in the industry as the communication expert, which that is a beautiful title. And you're a business development coach for dental practices. And interestingly enough, when you got into this, one of the most common requests was, gosh, we need help with our communication. We need help with our communication. And so with that and another situation, it kind of pushed you into getting a certification in conversational intelligence, which sounds like a great intelligence to have. And you're one of an elite group of coaches that does this, right?
Yeah, under 1,000 in the world.
Wow. Wow, that's really great. Well, I would love to hear how your life kind of went in this direction. Where did this start, your curiosity with conversation?
Well, that's a great question. It did and does come up all the time, doesn't it? Like even in jobs I've had in the past, it was always our observation that we could use some help with better communication. We as a team, or between management and the team, or what have you. And when I started coaching dental offices, I found out, okay, it's not just the offices I've worked in. Like everybody has this, and I would say literally every office I worked with, at one time or another, would come back around with, we need help with our communication. This is ridiculous. And so it was kind of just a recurring theme anyway. And then I had a moment. It's not that I didn't realize in my own life that I could use help with communication, but I had a moment when it just became crystal clear that something had to change. So I have 4 kids. And so right there's all kinds of opportunities for better communication.
Right.
But there was a specific time when my youngest, Peyton, and this kid, I'm telling you, he just radiates joy. He's just a happy, happy guy. He's just one of those people that walks in a room and lights it up. And so this happened. He was probably about 6 years old or so. And our whole family was heading down to our annual Memorial Day parade, which meant that it was time for my annual Memorial Day parade mom speech, which was probably most of you have either gotten this or given this. Mine goes something like, okay, kids, we're going to have a great time tonight. All kinds of fun. We don't need anything. Your dad and I packed everything we need. Don't even ask. We're not buying anything. Okay, let's go have a great time. Something like that. So, we get there and the kids take off with their friends amongst our friends. And I'm in a conversation with my really good friend, Sean. And she's in the middle of a sentence and I can hear off in the distance, Mom, Mom, Mom. I'm like, so I look over and it's Peyton running up with his friend, Cody. And he catches my eye. Mom, Cody got a Spider-Man balloon. Ron was still in the middle of a sentence and I didn't want to be rude and interrupt her. Thank goodness, Laura, because that gave him a chance to finish his sentence. Mom, Cody got a Spider-Man balloon. I got nothing. And he does this huge ta-da kind of pose and this great big infectious smile that was just typically Peyton. I mean, that's just who he is. He was so excited to come tell me what a team player he was being, how he's right on board with this Ramirez family spending freeze. He's rocking it. And I was literally ready to jump down his throat. I was so sure he was, that sentence was going to end differently. It was really a wake up call for me, that moment. It ended great. And would he have gotten over it? Of course, he probably would have gotten over it, in the moment. Again, he probably wouldn't have said anything. just,
Mhm.
whatever, alligator tears, turned, walked away, and I would have been none the wiser. Thought, ah,
Right.
little brat wanted his
Mhm.
fun. Nope, not today. We already talked about it, or whatever. Gone right back to my conversation. Not thought more about it than that. And no idea the little spirit that I would have just crushed.
Yeah.
So, man, it really hit me in the moment because he was just so excited, and I thought, how many times have I done that to him?
Mm.
Even if it wasn't this time. And yeah, would he have gotten over it? Sure. But what about the next time he had something exciting he wanted to tell me?
Mhm.
Probably be thinking twice. So,
Right.
you know, are there things he doesn't tell me because he's afraid I'm going to jump down a throat? How about my other three kids, all older and a lot more opportunities to have screwed them up? How about friends, family, husband? So I know it wasn't the first time it had ever happened, but that one really hit me hard. And I just thought, I got to do better. So
Mhm.
that kind of happened around the same time that I had transitioned into um, coaching dental offices and hearing the need for communication. So when I heard about that course, conversational intelligence, and that somebody could become certified in conversational intelligence, I'm like, you can learn that? You can teach that? Yes, please sign me up. So it was a little more rigorous than I anticipated. There's a lot to it, but wow, it's interesting. It's great stuff. And I coach on it all the time now. It's by far and away that, and a new thing that I'm kind of into that I'm sure we'll bring up, are far and away the biggest things that I get requests for help on.
Oh my gosh, that story is just riveting, and it really wakes me up to how many times I've probably done the same exact thing, or even just been thinking so far ahead that you're not even listening to what's going on or reading the body language or the clues that they're giving you, right? Gosh, there's so much to it. So when you go into offices and you're helping them with their communication, what are some of the most common ways that you help, or what are some of the most common problems? Let's go with maybe problems and then how you help.
All right. So most common problems, uh, you just described several of them, right? And so in conversational intelligence, we learn about the five biggest, not the five only, the five biggest conversational blind spots. And
Mhm.
by far and away, the biggest one is assuming other people think like we think, see what we see, feel like we feel.
Mhm.
And so there's just a whole lot of assumptions that go on. There's also, kind of what we call the movie of the minds. Like, I think that am perfectly clear when I talk about something, and yet when I use certain words or certain phrases, I mean them in a certain way, and yet it could be completely a different way that somebody takes them. As a matter of fact, there's a statistic out there. It was a study out of Stanford University. 9 out of 10 conversations miss the mark, meaning that the intent doesn't equal the impact. 90% of the time, what we're saying is somewhere between misconstrued and completely distorted by the person who is taking it in.
Mhm.
So, so
So everyone needs to be certified in conversational intelligence.
to a degree, or at least aware, if nothing else, like
Mhm.
right now, that's a huge gift knowing that. So
Mhm.
for everybody listening to this, just taking that one piece, 90% of conversations miss the mark. Sometimes you know it, you realize it's hitting wrong, and sometimes it's like my conversation with Peyton. I would never have known
Mhm.
if it would have gone down with how it would have if I would have been able to react like I wanted to. Are you kidding me right now? We've only been here 10 minutes, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Right? He would have probably just turned and walked away. I would have never known that it missed the mark. So sometimes it's by a big way, sometimes it's just a nuance. So, but now knowing that 90% of the time there's some sort of misconstrued misunderstanding, something that the intent isn't 100% hitting home like we think that it is.
Mhm.
Well, now if somebody doesn't seem to understand us, or we feel confused or upset or frustrated, or like we're banging our head against the wall, we can at least relax into the idea of wait, they didn't probably wake up to tick me off. There might have been, maybe I need to re-explain myself or ask some more questions.
Mhm.
Instead of getting upset, how about I get curious? Where might this have missed the mark? Because when you
Mhm.
start asking that, could something have been misconstrued? Could there have been a misunderstanding or an assumption?
Mhm.
90% of the time, you're going to be right. You
Right.
really kind of can't go wrong. So typically, that's kind of where we start. There's a lot of assumptions that go on, a lot of misunderstandings. People, hey, morning, or hey, Laura, good morning. How you doing? And you think, why is she speaking like that? Like, did I do something to tick her off? I think I've been totally friendly, but maybe you heard a nuance, or, something happened and you thought I was being snide or sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
We go about our day all day. I can't figure out why you're giving me the cold shoulder, or, like all the time, right? These kinds of things happen.
Right. That's so interesting. And so there's probably a lot of energy involved with it, as far as, just the energy that you're emitting even can change a conversation. Is that right?
Oh, 100%. Conversations are chemical.
Mhm.
It's neuroscience. It's a cacophony of sciences, but it's about energy, tone, intention. But a huge piece of that is energy. It's literally the hormones that you're giving off with every look, with every gesture, with every word. You and the person that you're interacting with, neurons are firing, and you're giving off either feel good hormones, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and so forth, or fear hormones, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And there's a contagion effect. It's literally catchy.
Oh.
So if you're fearful going into a conversation, or you feel threatened in any way, that doesn't have to be a physical threat. That could be a threat to your comfort zone, a threat to your status or your territory, or maybe you're worried about being judged or rejected or ostracized. You're literally emitting cortisol, and the other person will pick up on that. And the conversation can take a whole turn just from that.
You can see how one simple missed conversation can affect the office the entire day. Like
Right.
everybody.
Yes, 100%, including the patients. Even if you're playing nice in front of the patient, you're still emitting the other hormones. And so they will pick up on what channel you're on.
Mhm.
Literally, they'll pick up on it. So it might not be to the degree that you're feeling it, but it will be to some degree. And Laura, it works vice versa. Like, where is the most scary place on earth to be for some people? The dental office. So your patients come in and they're already emitting cortisol. Not all of them, but a good portion of them are apprehensive. They're out of their comfort zone. They feel threatened, maybe not physically, but they're concerned. They don't know what to expect. They're worried about bad news or big money. And so if we're adding to that cortisol, or B, we're around that all day long. So if we're picking up on that, we don't know how to sort of counter it and watch out for it, and kind of deflect, as it were, and inject oxytocin or feel good hormones along with that, then it can be a tough spiral. So it's kind of making the invisible visible. That's my first job, when I start working with an office, is to explain in real simple terms sort of how the chemistry works, because once people start recognizing it, they can start affecting it for themselves right away.
That's great, because I imagine too, it can affect when you go home at the end of the day if you're not deflecting or mitigating or taking care of that. So,
Absolutely.
wow. And so, by doing this, by going into offices and realizing that they needed help with communication, and then getting your conversational intelligence certification, trying to say that without it's a tongue twister a little bit. You founded then a consulting business called Let's Talk Results.
Yes.
So this is your baby now, and this is your passion. And in addition, you are finishing your certification in positive intelligence. So tell us a little bit about what positive intelligence is and how this fits together with conversational intelligence.
I'm glad you asked, because I'm equally as passionate about both of them, and they work hand in hand beautifully, which is what took me from one to the other. And not that I use one or the other, they intertwine amazingly. So the conversations, the chemistry of conversation matters. And when we can mitigate that, when we can recognize it and use our skills to help run that in a good rather than I'm going to do the air quote bad direction, right? Then that is going to help it's going to make our impact more effective, and we're going to get results in more the way that we need to, and everybody's happier. The conversation starts right here. So what I started to find over time, I got certified in conversational intelligence. And so I could help people with these conversations, amongst other people. And what I started to realize more and more is what they were telling themselves. This 24/7 conversation going on in their own head was creating more cortisol than any outward. Well, it was exasperating any outward conversations that they were having. And so then you have to seek to how do we correct that? How can I help them with that? And certainly I learned some skills in conversational intelligence to help with that. And then I was introduced to Shahzad Shemaine, the founder of Positive Intelligence. And so there he also uses a mixture. He uses neuroscience, but also positive psychology, of course, I'm not going to be able to come up with it right now, but cognitive behavioral psychology and performance science. There we go. So it's kind of a synthesis of those four sciences and kind of the latest research in all of those around the effect of positivity and why it does or doesn't matter, and not positivity, not to be confused with Pollyanna. I hear that a lot. Well, isn't that just putting a positive spin on it? Isn't that just kind of unicorns and rainbows? So it's not about that. It's about like true sort of from the heart, sage perspective is kind of what we refer to it as. So honestly believing that anything can be turned into a gift or an opportunity, not just because you believe it, but because you will make it so. You will find the gifts or the opportunities, and you will turn it into that. And so depending on sort of your mental fitness level, so positive intelligence, we talk about mental fitness, which you can literally measure. So depending on your mental fitness level, you might be able to take on bigger challenges or littler challenges, but you work your way up. It's just like with physical fitness. When you're physically fit, right, you can take on bigger and bigger hills and clear up to mountains with less physical stress. When you're mentally fit, you can take on life's challenges with less mental stress, less upset and negativity. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's just fascinating. And I love the fact that you draw the comparison to, working out for our physical bodies and working out our brain. And that, so essentially what you're saying is someone can have low mental fitness, but they can train to get higher. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So I teach a 3-part operating system. So there's more to it than that, but it really is as simple as that. There's like three-step process, and there's lots to learn about it, but it's fascinating. It's not complicated, and it's things you can start implementing right away and building that muscle. It's literally 20% insight, so it's learning the things about it, but it's 80% literally doing the exercises to build the muscle in the same way you would have to physically. So I do a 6-week boot camp around it. Like it's your initial, exactly that. Yeah. Mental fitness boot camp. And so you dive in kind of in a big way for those 6 weeks to sort of get the jump start. And then you kind of go on a maintenance. So it's like showing up at the gym, right? And you have your personal trainer, and they're taking you and showing you all the equipment, how to use it, giving you personal workouts to do each day. And you're kind of like doubling down to see effects right off the bat. And then you kind of, fit or drop into a routine of your own. You experiment with some different things. You're using the equipment on your own, and you still have your trainer there, but you're kind of growing and growing, and you continue to get more and more fit. But I bring that up. It's by design that it's 6 weeks. If you do, these exercises that we're talking about, X amount of time, it takes 15 minutes a day throughout your day. For for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks through. They did this on in a study with over 500,000 participants in 50 countries. So it's not just, it spans the globe. It's global how it works. But what they found was that it was around that 6 to 8 week mark that results showed up on MRI imaging to the naked eye. So like if we were to take a brain scan before that 6 to 8 weeks, then you go through the program and we took another brain scan, you would see increased gray matter in the prefrontal cortex and atrophy in your survivor brain. Isn't that crazy?
So cool.
It's so it's cool.
I absolutely love that. I love learning about how resilient our brain is if we just use it.
And so few people do. No, I'm totally kidding. It's a joke. It's just a joke.
Oh my gosh. So the mental fitness boot camp starts October 30th.
Yeah, my next one's October 30th.
Okay. And that's a virtual boot camp. So
it's the boot camp. Like I say, it's 6 weeks long. Most of it is app driven. It's on your phone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so every week you get on Saturday, you get a 1 hour video from Shirzad Shemaine, the one who founded Positive Intelligence. And so you have all weekend and through Monday night to take that in. And then Tuesday through Friday, you have little reminders that come up on your phone. You get a focus of the day, and then you get 3 challenges throughout the day. Each of these is like under 3 minutes. So, and then in the evening, there's a little prompt to journal. There's usually like 2 questions, and you can put in, some people journal a lot. Some people put in a couple words, just a couple reflections. So all together, like Tuesday through Friday, it takes about 15 minutes a day, broken up throughout the day, purposely broken up throughout the day, because you're training your mind essentially. We're working on what's called your self-command muscle. That's one of the 3 pieces of the operating system, right? And so it's essentially pulling yourself back into the present and kind of back into sort of that sage, being able to access that prefrontal cortex. We immediately tend to, most of our mirror neurons and what we've trained our brain to do in the past is to head right to that survivor brain. But this is retraining your brain, literally creating new paths towards that sage brain, where all of our wisdom, innovation, empathy, strategy, insight, foresight, all of those things live up here. But when we're upset and frustrated, literally that cortisol shuts off access to whatever degree we're triggered. It shuts off access to that prefrontal cortex. So the faster that we can recover, then the faster we regain, we can respond instead of react, right? And so the more that we work on that self-command muscle and learning how to do that, then the better we get at it, and the faster that we can recover, depending on the size of the challenge, how badly we're triggered, as it were. But we have to learn to do that throughout the day. So people do that like with meditation, right? When people are doing meditation, they're activating that prefrontal cortex, and they're getting kind of into that calm, centered space, which is beautiful, and it counts. That's also building mental muscle. But where the gap tends to be is if they're in the middle of a meeting and they're feeling upset, they're like, but I don't have my yoga mat and and I need a dark room. Just give me 10 minutes. I'll be fine. And then let me come back.
Exactly.
So a lot of the work that we do in mental fitness and positive intelligence, and definitely in the boot camp, is learning how to, in the moment, bring yourself back to center through what we call PQ reps, which are just little exercises, 10 seconds at a time. You can do it 10 seconds at a time or 2 hours at a time. But when you're in the middle of a meeting, you can do it literally with your eyes open and bring yourself back to center, or whatever you're doing in traffic, or, pick your poison.
Working with a patient, or
absolutely
talking with your teenager, or
yep. Exactly. And Laura, it's right back to what we talked about with conversational intelligence. It's producing endorphins. which are catchy. So there's mirror neurons, there's that contagion effect. And so when you're talking with your teenager or working on a patient who's frustrated and upset, or who's maybe you're getting frustrated and upset and they're already nervous, but if you can figure out, if you understand how to use, there's all kinds of techniques out there, all kinds. So this is just one, but this is extremely powerful to be able to use in the moment to bring yourself kind of back down to that calm, clear-headed, laser-focused action. And also be able to access empathy, which we need in a dental office in a huge way, right? But it lives in a completely different part of our brain than our data brain and our survival brain. So as dentists, we're working in an area, I'm not a dentist, but, I've worked a long time in dentistry. And, when your focus is in an area this big, and it's a technical thing that you're doing, you tend to be in your data brain, which again is a completely different area than where your empathy is, where your problem solving skills and all of those sorts of things. And so sometimes that relationship and that calm, gets set aside.
I suppose that would really be helpful too. Like when you, as a dentist, are transitioning from maybe a really challenging procedure to a hygiene exam.
Yes.
Like you have to bring a completely different energy,
Really, yeah.
How do you switch, So it sounds like a wonderful way to kind of reset your energy, basically.
Absolutely. And then we talk about 5 sage powers. So, of your sage brain, actually 6. And so being able to, so it's the self-command muscle, doing those PQ reps, and then being able to sort of, it sounds woo-woo, but it's actually all, like I said, based in science, but be able to call on a specific sage power. Like when I'm walking into this sort of a situation, what do I need? Do I need empathy? Do I need curiosity? Do I need innovation? Do I need activation? So it's not about being, passive. It's about being fierce. Like he refers a lot to like Star Wars, the good versus evil, and sort of tapping into that Jedi power, that Jedi sage mindset, or when you think about like the martial arts or things like that. So a lot of people, I think, have a real misnomer when they first start hearing about positive intelligence. Again, back to that Pollyanna thing. And well, it's not all rainbows and sunshine. And am I just supposed to brush off the negative, or not deal with it or avoid it? And it's not that at all. It's clear-headed, laser-focused. If you need it, fierce action, like a Jedi warrior, if he's being attacked, it would be a weakness for him to be upset about it. Right. He would be all over the place. He wouldn't be able to be as precise and as a Jedi warrior is. Right. And so if they find that calm and then they take the action they need to take, not reacting, but responding. Does that make sense?
Yes. And again, it sounds like everybody needs to do this.
So Laura, kind of an adjunct, the reason that I kind of put out my own shingle as let's talk results. I've worked years in dentistry and I have a huge passion in dentistry. I love working with dentists, with dental teams. I love it. And my kids, as I started learning about conversational intelligence, and then especially when I started learning about, well, even back then, but also now with this mental fitness, they're like, Mom, my friends need this. Our schools need this. My teachers need this. With the conversational intelligence, I can't tell you how many times I heard that. And so now I still work in dentistry mainly. But yeah, I've had so many teachers come through the mental fitness boot camp. And well, I say kids. My kids are older now, but a lot of their friends, which has really surprised me. We had the first couple come through and then they started telling friends who have told friends. But actually, I say it really surprises me. But Laura, that's part of the reason that I got in. I was really passionate about being involved in the Dental Mental Avengers, is that, again, I have 4 kids, and between those 4 kids, they've probably had 10 friends that have committed suicide. And my niece committed suicide. And I have another niece that now seems better. She's been through boot camp, but she was suicidal for several years.
Mm.
And so they're like, Mom, we need this. Like, people need this out there. And so, yeah, to your point, everybody can use it. And I'm just passionate about getting it to anybody that I can, really.
How young of a child could take this?
So I would say you kind of have to break it up, boy versus girl. Not to be prejudiced at all, but, but literally the male brain develops, the prefrontal cortex develops later than the female. And yet, having said that, so for girls, starting to you can introduce it to kids, doing how to do PQ reps. Actually, if you want, here in just a second, I can kind of describe what a PQ rep is and a couple different ways that you can do them. And you could introduce it to kids, not as a brain exercise necessarily, but you can kind of walk them through it, and they can kind of learn how to essentially grow that muscle without it feeling like an exercise. It can feel like a game. But having said that, turning, and you can kind of talk about you've got, everybody has two voices in their head. One is more of that friendly voice, things are good, I'm in a good mood, and it's I'm curious, I'm happy, I'm joyful. And then there's that negative voice that we all have in our head that is sad or mad or frustrated or guilty, shameful. So part of mental fitness, what we in positive intelligence, we kind of we refer to the 5 powers of the sage brain, but they've also, through factor analysis. So for those of you who don't remember factor analysis in school, I'm probably talking to a crowd that does, but just in case, it's really just bringing things back down to their most simple levels. So the best example that I have is, like, it wouldn't take an artist a palette of 1,000 colors to paint any scenery they wanted to. They would need 3 colors, right? The 3 primary colors, red, blue, yellow, and they could paint anything that they ever wanted to. So through tons and tons of research, 500,000 participants, 50 countries, all of that, and factor analysis, they narrowed down the source of our negativity down to 10 what they call saboteurs, right? So sort of, I'm going to say voices in your head, but, it's our self-talk. It's how we sabotage ourselves. And they gave them names, and they tend to go into 10 categories. So the one that everybody has is the judge. It always makes me think, I remember Sammy Davis Jr. in Here Comes the Judge. Here comes the judge. Anyway, but we all have the judge. It's our judge of circumstance, our judge of ourselves, our judge of other people. And so me or any of the other coaches that I've met in positive intelligence, and Shirzad with the hundreds that he's trained, it's like, I've never seen anybody not have the judge in at least one of their modalities. But then there's 9 other accomplished saboteurs. Everybody has at least one. Some people have them all. I have all but one. But they sound like, the victim, the hyperachiever, the hyper-rational, the stickler, the controller, the hyper-vigilant. So probably some of those sound familiar. If the pleaser, if it doesn't sound like anybody in your head, you maybe know somebody like, oh yeah, yep, I know that one. And what they've done, it really, where they form is it's taking our biggest strengths. And of course, we're going to use our strengths wherever we can. That's our go-to. But really what the saboteur does is takes our biggest strength and overuses it and literally abuses it to the point that it becomes sabotage, right?
Yep.
And so I help people to not lose that strength. Like with each one of those saboteurs comes a really wonderful innate essence that person has, right? So we don't want to lose that essence. We just want to use it through sage and go even higher, faster, stronger than through the saboteur. So out of the positive pull of curiosity, passion, wonder, all of those, things versus blame, shame, guilt, upset, disappointment, which is where most people get their push. You can have success that way. Many people are very, very, very successful through the push of their saboteurs, but they're not necessarily happy.
Right. Right. And I think that's ultimately the goal is we want to use our strengths to be happy.
Right. Yeah. Oh, all of this to say, yeah. So sorry. Wow. Was that a bunny trail or what? And so for girls, for younger kids, we can talk about, those positive voices, the negative voices, and who you want to listen to, sort of a thing. And so usually for girls around 13 or 14, boys more like 16 or 17, as far as like coming through boot camp, learning it in that way.
Oh, I love that you mentioned the Dental Avengers for mental wellness. And I love that you are putting your cape on to bring this to as many people as possible, because this sounds life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And I'm sure has ripple effects and can be world-changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. That's fantastic. So we have somebody that came on. I don't see their name, but oh, look, two amazing women. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So you were talking saboteurs. You also have a workshop. And so I'm thinking that this has something to do with those saboteurs. Is that correct?
It does have something to do with those saboteurs. So we have fun with it. You learn. I also bring in some of the conversational intelligence. And so you learn a little bit about the chemistry of conversation and, what's going on in here. And then we jump into the saboteurs. Everybody takes a saboteur assessment before they come, which takes like 5 minutes, and you learn who your top saboteurs are. And then you pick one of them and we kind of do a deep dive, but then we debrief it for everybody, each one of the saboteurs for everybody, because most people have more than one and they're curious about the others, or they know somebody. It's like, well, I know I'm a controller, but man, I live with an avoider, or maybe he's a pleaser. I don't know which one it is, but I want to learn more about that sort of a thing. So, so we have a lot of fun with it. And the thing is, each one of the saboteurs promises you that you need them, right? And with each country, which is odd, there's a certain saboteur that is sort of heralded, as it were, and so it's hard for people. And so in the U.S., it's the hyperachiever. It's hard for people in the U.S. and Canada to think of that as a saboteur. What's wrong with that? We raise our kids to be hyperachievers, right? And so. So with each one, it's like, well, that's what pushes me. That's what makes me want to be better. What now? I'm not supposed to have goals. So it's not about that. Achiever isn't a saboteur. A hyperachiever is a saboteur. So we jump into what are the promises of each of the saboteurs? What are the lies? What are they telling you? And how is it that they actually deliver exactly the opposite? And so it's really interesting. It's like, it's one of those.
That's fascinating. And I love the fact that you bring out that they are a strength. We just need to learn how to kind of harness their hyperactivity, right? We need to.
Exactly.
And so you shouldn't be ashamed of your saboteur, right? It's actually a strength of yours if used correctly.
Absolutely. So when I tell people I have, all but one, I must be really strong.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Oh my gosh, that sounds like a great workshop. So that's virtual probably, right?
Yeah, that one's virtual.
Okay, excellent. So all of these have links that Robyn has provided. So I'll make sure and get those into the comments below and the show notes on YouTube so that you can easily find these. These both sound fascinating. Like, sign me up, I'm ready. And just so cool. So there's something interesting about you that maybe a lot of people don't know, since you talk about conversational intelligence and positive intelligence and working with dental teams, is that you are fascinated as well with the oral systemic connection. So I'm curious where that, where you got that interest and what you did with that, and how does that play into our brain, if it does?
Well, so actually it's funny. I joke that I coach on the other oral systemic connection, the words, and how it affects us systemically, right? But I used to be a patient care coordinator. And so I did, really up into the exam, I took all the records, all the x-rays, the intraoral pictures, and went through risk factors with patients and kind of educated them on what they were going through. It kind of pre-diagnosed, if you will, like looking at the pictures, talking to them about what I saw in there and such. And I just love it. I'm passionate about all of that. I love treatment diagnosis. I love comprehensive diagnosis and, working with doctors on doing that and how to present it in a way that isn't scary, but also isn't one tooth at a time, which is even more scary as the patient is afraid to come in because every time it's something else, right? All of that sort of stuff. But the oral systemic connection specifically, when I started learning more about it, I was just absolutely fascinated, and the statistics around it. Like most of the world has it, and they have no freaking idea, A, that what it is, and B, that they have it to some degree or another, or what to do about it, or what that means, not just to their smile. Well, it's okay. As long as there's blenders, I don't need teeth. Through that, then get them out of there because they're affecting everything. So I was introduced I used to work for Productive Dentist Academy, and they brought in Brad Bale of the Bale-Donine method, which got me even more fascinated. They are the ones that published the paper confirming that periodontal disease and endodontic disease isn't just that it's literally causation of heart attack and stroke, which caught my attention right away. And then I got to have lunch with Brad Bale at a different event, and he told me, Robyn, right now we are proving that around 10% of heart attack and stroke is caused, not what's the word I want? If it wasn't caused by that there's a connection. It's not just a connection. It is literally causation, right? Yeah, correlate. It's not just correlated. It's literally causation. And, I went through the preceptorship. So I learned all of the science, not just behind the periodontal and endodontic infection, but all the rest of the things from the Bale-Donine method, which is fascinating. But what he told me at lunch was, he goes, I really believe, and he's not a dentist, mind you, he's an MD. He says, I really believe in my heart that probably closer to 50% of heart attack and stroke, and by the way, Alzheimer's disease and diabetes are caused by periodontal and residual endodontic, endodontic and residual from, all of those endos. Everybody's now getting their 3D imaging and seeing what's been left behind that nobody had any idea about. Anyway, so that was a lot of words. Sorry, but I am passionate about it. I love this stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that because we're connected. It's all connected. And so, you can't take, it's like you can't take your energy out of the conversation. You can't take the health of your mouth out of the health of your body. You can't take the health of your brain out of the health of your relationships and your success. And, it's just, it brings it full circle. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you also work with dental teams and through a team engagement project. And that's just dentist team coaching.
Yeah. Yep. So we do 2 or 3 times a year. We also do like a weekend workshop called the Team Engagement Project, that docs and sometimes docs and their teams will come through. And then we also do one-on-one coaching with doctors and doctors and their teams. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. You are a busy person. I love it. All right. So again, check out Robyn. This is her website. Let's talk /results.com. And again, I'll have all these links for you, but really there isn't anybody that she couldn't help, whether it be a family member, a child, a child's friend, a business, a dental office. I mean, really, there's so much that you could help with. So thank you for what you do and bringing this to our attention, bringing this to our awareness, and giving us the tools to increase our mental fitness and I think that this is going to really be instrumental in how our world gets through our challenges that we're facing.
Agreed. And it is my pleasure. And thank you for helping me to get it out to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we wrap up today, there's one question I always ask is, as a busy entrepreneurial woman out there doing your stuff, a family of four, and probably your own likes and interests, how do you bring balance to a typical day?
So, actually, I'm really glad you asked because I promised earlier, imagine that I got down another bunny trail that I would tell you about PQ reps.
Oh,
And so there's a lot of ways that I bring balance, but this is by far and away the most common for me and the most effective, especially if I don't have a lot of time in a day, but to help me kind of recenter. So in short, kind of what a PQ rep is spending 10 seconds super focused on one physical sensation. So an example would be rubbing two fingers together with such attention that you can literally feel the fingerprints, the ridges of the fingerprints on both fingers, and paying attention to only that for 10 seconds. So that's one PQ rep, 10 seconds. And so I try to get in 100 of those a day, which is about 15 minutes. So sometimes I take it in 10 seconds at a time here and there. And, before a quick meeting or a call like this, okay, maybe I'll do 2 minutes or 5 minutes just to kind of, it's essentially zoning in versus zoning out. So I can even do it, if I'm, a lot of times I just want to go outside and get a little air. So I can do that and just kind of zone out. But if I just spend a couple of those minutes, if I'm spending 15 minutes out there and I spend a couple of those minutes really feeling the sun, the warmth of the sun on my face, or the breeze in my hair, or listening for the furthest away sound that I can hear, there's a million ways to do it. I come back 5 times more rejuvenated than if I would have just zoned out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're putting your brain to work in a way that makes it work better.
Exactly. And it's, people are like, oh, but I just want to zone out. And I don't disagree. Sometimes I just want to zone out, but I find that those couple minutes of also zoning in are more relaxing than you can imagine. Your mind will wander. It will start to think about something else, and you simply command it back. It's not, you're not failing. You expect that it's going to wander and you command it back. And that's the exercise, is that self-command muscle, bringing it back to that one physical sensation.
Oh, and so these are the exercises that you see a difference on the brain scan if you keep this up. And I mean, there's the proof in the pudding right there.
Touche.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I can't wait to go try some of this, or just feeling the sun and the breeze, and try and get my reps in. And remember, everyone, check out the workshop coming up, the Mental Fitness Boot Camp coming up. That one is coming up October 30th. That's the 6-week app-based program. And then her workshop about saboteurs, finding out about your saboteur and how you can, use those strengths to your advantage. And that's coming up October 22nd. So, and again, check out her website here, and I will put all these links. But thank you so much, Robyn, for spending the afternoon with us and sharing this important information. And I would just like to say, I appreciate you and the light you bring to the day every day. It's always a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Balance Bosses, remember, you are the CEO of your life. Now become the boss of your balance, and go practice some reps. All right. Cheers, everyone.